When you apply to Naturalize, are there any underlying risks to your green card? I'm Erick Widman. I'm an immigration lawyer. And when you apply for US citizenship, you're going to be subjected to a criminal background check, but they're also going to open up your original green card application to make sure everything is fine there. And they're going to be looking for potential issues that would result not only in the denial of your citizenship application, but sadly, in putting you into removal proceedings. USCIS could issue a notice to appear in immigration court because they believe they found that your underlying green card is invalid for various reasons. So this is a very scary scenario, and let's look at some of these situations so you can make sure you avoid them, make sure that your green card foundation is rock solid before you apply to Naturalize. So one situation where your green card could be in trouble is if you apply to Naturalize after a long period of time outside the US. So even trips that are more than 6 months long outside the US as a permanent resident, those long 6 month plus trips create a presumption that you've given up your US permanent residence. You can rebut that presumption by showing your ties and connections to the US. But an absence from the US, if you have a green card and you were outside the US more than a year, that is effectively a death sentence for your green card. It invalidates your green card with some exceptions. So watch out for that, of course. And USCIS, when they're looking at your eligibility to naturalize for this continuous residence period, they can pull up old trips from 15 years ago where you spent a long time outside the US. So carefully scrutinize, carefully confirm how long your prior trips were outside the United States as a permanent resident. Okay, in addition, if you were not eligible for the original green card for some reason, that's clearly a big problem. For example, if you were married to someone from your home country and thought you got divorced and were issued some kind of divorce decree, but it turns out that your divorce decree was not a valid divorce decree because it wasn't stamped correctly, you didn't appear in front of the right judge, that could result in a whole host of problems, the unraveling of your green card, because the marriage that you then got into with your US citizen spouse was not lawful and contrary to public policy because you were already married to someone else. That's bigamy. So your current marriage, if this was you, would be an invalid marriage, and the green card that you received through your current marriage would also be invalid. So you would have to take a number of steps, sadly a big mess, but get remarried properly and then get a new green card that is valid based upon your new marriage. So that is one messy scenario where you inadvertently, unintentionally entered into this marriage thinking it was fine and it wasn't. And therefore your green card was not fine either. There are other situations where you may know of some kind of misrepresentation or fraud, and that is a huge problem for your current green card. So if you represented something, if you stated something on a immigration form, either overseas or in the US, and it was a lie, it was fraudulent, that can result, and often can result, in the removal of your green card, the invalidation of your green card. And USCIS, when you're applying to naturalize, USCIS says, not only are we denying your citizenship application, but here's a notice to appear in immigration court because your underlying green card was fraudulently obtained. This is all bad news. Sorry to share these scenarios, but it's important for you to keep them in mind before you naturalize. There are also quite a few other various ways that you could get into trouble. I'm going to highlight two more here. If you have a criminal record, some kind of conviction or issue that happened after you got your green card, for example, you should make sure that the conviction or charge does not disqualify you from being able to naturalize. So there's a lot of analysis that goes into that process to make sure, for example, that you didn't commit an aggravated felony. So make sure any underlying criminal issue does not undercut your green card. If you're an employee who got a green card through your employer, this can happen from time to time where your employer didn't follow the correct procedures to secure that green card for you. And maybe it was during the perm process, for example, that all of the proper steps were not followed. Maybe the documentation was not completed correctly. This can also raise big questions about the underlying green card and your permanent resident status when USCIS is looking to see if you qualify to naturalize and discovers, sadly, that your petitioner's employment-based green card application was lacking in some key way. So that's no good. That could also undercut, invalidate your green card. They're basically going to say, sorry, you don't qualify for citizenship, and your green card is also invalid. Sobering news for today's video. Hope this helps. If you have any questions about it, definitely get in touch and take care.